Hello the internet and welcome back to my channel. Today on the bench I have a Sound Blaster 064 model CT4520 from 1997. This is a 16-bit ISA card and I purchased this card quite some time ago. As faulty, it says RAM issue on it. I'm not sure whether that's the only fault. I definitely can see some physical damage on this PCB, so we will need to swap some components for sure, but I've no idea whether it's even getting detected by a system or it's outputting any sound at all. So in this video we are going to try and fix this card with the help of a twin 064 4520. This is exactly the same card, exactly the same components. I got this card quite some time ago before this one, and I was planning to make a video out of it. I should have some footage about this repair, but it never got published. Why? Sometimes it happens, the video, I don't like it, it doesn't go anywhere, I can't fix it, or it gets too long, I don't know, but I never published this video, and it's not the only one. I got a few projects which have never been published. So we might end up using this card as a donor board, I don't really know, but first thing first, we're gonna test this one and see if it even works. So let's not waste any more time, let me thank today's sponsor PCBWay, and now let's get the motherboard, plug this card and see if it even gets detected. Alright, this time instead of my usual socket 7, I have a slot 1 motherboard. It's the only one I have which works, so let's give it some Alright, I got my favorite socket 7 board out. It's the Shuttle 591P, which you've seen on this video, almost killed it. First thing first, it's got a Pentium 166 PCI video cards from RAM and a compact flash. Let's make sure that everything works. Let's power up in 3, 2, 1, go. Let's power up, 3, 2, 1, go. Oh. Alright, I got this socket 7 board, it's a Soyo SY5BT, and to be honest, this is the third board I'm testing for this video. I can't get anything to post, so let's hope that this one works. I'm going to test the board without anything just to make sure everything works before testing the sound card. Let's power up, 3, 2, 1, go. Maybe. Yes, this is working. I don't know what was wrong with the other ones. Anyways, we got Pentium MMX at 200. This is posting, and in theory, it should run DOS 622. And yes, everything works totally fine. Now, as I said in my intro, this card has some physical damage on it, but I still feel like testing it, even though probably it's not the wisest thing to do. Let's plug it up and see what happens. Power up, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. Yeah, the board is posting, we got the right amount of RAM. Let's see whether we can detect the card somewhere here. There is an audio device listed as an ISA plug and play, so that's a good start. Let me get into the creative test program and see whether this card is even. Yes, I can see I still had old Sound Blaster controls in there. So the card is definitely detected, which is a good start. Let me get into the test software and see whether there's any sound out of it. I really doubt. Alright, so the card is unable to set the low DMA at 1, and I have tested this one. This doesn't even get recognized. I thought it would work, it was just a RAM issue. I thought I had it working under Windows, but it was a long time ago. Anyways, low DMA at channel 1 doesn't seem to be working, though when I'm booting it says it's seeing an audio card with DMA 5.1, and if I try and run Doom, it just completely crashes saying the Sound Blaster is not responding. So either there's something wrong with my system, but unfortunately I haven't got another sound card, another Sound Blaster where I can test things, which is never a good thing. I would say the first thing I can try is a different ISA slot, you never know. That didn't work either, so let's try to set a different DMA through the configuration utility. Alright, so that worked. Hopefully it was just a good old DMA conflict. Now let's try some sound output. I'm really not expecting anything because there's broken components on the board, which I'll show you in a second. And there's absolutely no output. I'm gonna check in a second with an actual speaker if this is going through my capture device, but I do see the capture device is working. If I unplug this, I have some crackling noise, but there's no output whatsoever. The other thing I'm seeing is that the diagnose utility is saying detecting DRAM on the card, and it doesn't say anything. If I remember right, it should say that it has detected some RAM on the card, and this card is supposed to have 512 kilobytes of RAM. So maybe there is a RAM issue as well, but for the time being, I need to have some sound out of it. So it's time to move this card under the microscope and check the damage. Alright, here we are under the microscope. That's the sticker. You can't really see, but it says RAM issue. In a moment, I think I'd like to check all these little legs because they tend to detach pretty easily, though the card is being detected, so maybe that's not our problem. But let me show you what I've noticed. So first thing first, we have a missing capacitor here, and this capacitor has been replaced because if I'm looking at the back, besides these scratches, you can see that this is definitely not a factory capacitor. So I'm assuming that maybe the capacitor had been ripped off by the same damage, which has been removing the SMD capacitors on the board. And someone has replaced this capacitor here and this one. The others are factory from what I can see. We have another missing capacitor here, C19. These are probably decoupling capacitors, so I don't think that this is going to prevent the card from working. There's another missing capacitor here, C75, again, probably another decoupling capacitor. But most importantly, this IC here is cracked in the middle, so I'm assuming, again, there must have been some kind of impact in here, and we will definitely need to replace this component here. The KA3403D is a quad amplifier, so I'm assuming that maybe quite some sound is going through this little component, and hopefully that's why we haven't got any sound out of this Sound Blaster. This TL074C is also chipped in the corner, but I don't really think that that's preventing the functionality of the IC itself. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe there used to be a capacitor here, the C1 as well, which once again, it looks like a decoupling capacitor, so probably not the end of the world. I think this little IC is where the firmware is stored. There is a big scratch, but nothing to worry about. This though is definitely something that we need to worry about. There's a little scratch, it's not too big, but I think that is enough to sever this connection here, the one in the middle. Let's take a look. Let's try and remove some solder mask and check that out. Yes, that's definitely a broken trace. I'm actually impressed that this card was even detected, but that's definitely something that must be fixed. Oh. And that's another broken trace to fix. So we have quite a lot of work on this board, and finger crossed, hopefully we can get some sound at the end. And I haven't checked all the legs of these, the main Creative IC, but they all seem to be solidly attached. Now I might want to reflow them anyways. They tend to get detached after a while, after so many years, but I don't see an issue there. But I might be seeing an issue with the memory module. Let me show you. This is the memory module in question. I think it's 0.5 meg, but you can't see what I'd like to show you from this perspective. I'll have to tilt the board to show you. Looking from this angle, everything seems to be okay, and if I'm scrolling to the left, you can see that the solder joints are more or less there, and then I see something. And yeah, do you see something as well? Yeah, that is definitely not connecting to anything anymore, and I think I know what happened. If you compare the left leg with the right leg, you can see that the right leg has been pushed down, it's been compressed. So obviously this IC has been squashed in the pile of other boards or computer that this board ended up with, and that probably broke the solder joint. So I think that's it for this board. We have quite a few things to fix, to replace, to resolder. So let's get started, and hopefully we get something out of this board at the end. I've always found difficult to diagnose ISA cards because when they're installed in the motherboard, it's basically impossible to probe the pins or the components which are facing down, facing the motherboard. So over the years, I've been looking for a 90-degree riser, and you can find something online, but usually it can be expensive because it belongs to an IBM machine or an HP machine. It's kind of a niche. So I ended up designing my own, and I got here a 16-bit version and an 8-bit version, and these are available on the PCBWay store, the sponsor of this video. The way they work is very simple. You just plug your card into the adapter, and then the adapter into the motherboard, and now the board is facing up, so it's extremely easy to diagnose. Now the projects are free for everybody to download, or you can just add the projects to the basket and just have it manufactured by PCBWay. Alternatively, if you found a different project online or if you designed something yourself, well, just follow PCBWay.com. The process is extremely easy. The system is more or less automatic. You can change the color of your boards. Then you just need to select a postal service and PCBWay will deliver the PCBs at your place. I never had a problem with the PCBs from PCBWay, and honestly the customer service is top notch. And let me thank PCBWay for sending me this Christmas gift, being nominated Partner of the Year. Now I understand I'm not the only Partner of the Year, but this is quite a surprise. I wasn't expecting it. It came with a nice Christmas box with some gifts from PCBWay, so thank you for that. And if you happen to watch this video over the Christmas 2024 time, there is a Christmas sale going on at PCBWay.com, which extends to the beginning of 2025. So take a look at PCBWay.com and see if you can find something that you might want to order. The links for this project and to PCBWay are down below in the description, and let me thank PCBWay for sponsoring my videos on my channels, because their help makes these videos possible. So thank you very much, PCBWay. Now let's continue with the Sound Blaster. Alright, I've replaced the operational amplifier and fixed those two broken traces. Let's test the board before I replace those capacitors, which hopefully are just the decoupling capacitors, so they shouldn't be too critical for the board to work. 3, 2, 1, go. Board is posting, which is good. The Sound Blaster is still being detected. Oh, I heard a pop from, hopefully, the card initializing. So let's test it. Yes, we have the RAM back on the board. Fantastic. Let's not test the DRAM for the time being. Moment of truth. Is this gonna work? Let's give it a go.
8-bit testing.
It works! Amazing! Let's try 16-bit.
16-bit testing.
Synthesized music. And all synthesized music. Right, I would say, just as a final test, let's actually test the DRAM. I don't know how much time it would take, that's why I skipped it. But now let's get that DRAM module tested. Well, it didn't take long, and the DRAM passed the test. So fantastic! The card is working totally fine. The missing capacitors are probably just the decoupling capacitors. In a minute, we will measure these capacitors so I can get some new ones, or maybe I can just reuse this one since this card doesn't seem to be working. But anyways, this is a fully working card at the moment, so it makes sense to just replace all the capacitors and make it 100% working. And the Sound Blaster works totally fine. I'm pretty happy because this card has been on a shelf for quite some time, and I'm really happy that it was just a matter of a couple of traces and a cracked op amp. Now let's check those capacitors. So maybe I can swap them from here, but I will take a note in case I want to revive this board as well. Now that being said, I did test this board earlier on, and as I remembered, the EMU 8011 gets really hot. So I'm assuming there is a short inside this one. I can remember that I made this work, but there was an issue with the RAM, but this is still getting really hot. So I'm assuming this card is probably non-recoverable unless I find another one of these ICs. This is a value card. It doesn't really make sense to invest money on this board. So maybe I'll just keep it for spare parts, considering that one is working totally fine. Let's get those capacitors out. The three capacitors are identical. My Zoe LCR meter reads something between 80 and 90 nanofarad, depending on the frequency, though my Fluke, which is usually not so accurate, reads a more likely 100 nanofarad. The ESR value might be inaccurate because of flux residues everywhere, impeding the reading. In any case, those are 100 nanofarad capacitors, so nothing too fancy. I like removing and installing SND capacitors using my soldering iron. Using hot air implies heating up a large area around the component, particularly if the capacitor is attached to a ground plane, like all of this. Using a small soldering tip is, in my opinion, the simplest and faster option. And the Sound Blaster works perfectly fine. It was kind of a simple repair, but sometimes, I need a simple one. I need to see the end of a project without having to wait weeks or months or parts or having dead ends all the time. I'm actually happy because I couldn't fix this one, and now, honestly, I know that there's probably nothing I can do because the EMU 8000 is getting scorching hot. This is just gonna be for parts. I'm actually happy that I managed to use this card to fix that one. So to me, that's a rewarding, successful ending. I guess I'll give this board a good clean, and I might need to touch up a few things on the PCB, including the connector, which has some damage. But all in all, it is working. It's a Sound Blaster, even though it's the value edition of the 064, but it's an 064. And when I was a kid, I couldn't afford anything Sound Blaster because it was too expensive. So I'm happy to have one of these in my collection. I guess that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, as usual, I'd appreciate a thumb up down below, and also consider subscribing to this channel and my second channel if you like this kind of things. Don't forget, I'm also on Facebook and on Patreon, and the links are also down below in the description. There is a free tier on Patreon, so no excuses. But if you don't want to support me on Patreon, which is very much understandable, maybe you can buy me a coffee, and the link is also down below in the description. If you don't want to buy me a coffee, no worries. I do appreciate your time here, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe a like, a comment, that would massively help both myself and the algorithm. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I wish you a great day, and hope to see you soon here on my channels for my next videos. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Bye bye.